Hello, everyone. And I'm so happy to see you guys all here. I am Cheryl Ciecko. If you have not met me before or you don't know me, so this is day one of a 3-day event. Welcome, welcome. There's two boxes I recommend that you open. One is the chat box, which you can see in your bottom toolbar, and the other one is a Q&A box. So say hello in there and tell me where you're from, if you could do that. And if you're new to my content, so new, know me, whatever, and where you're from, because I like to see where people are from, because this is a problem that is, oh, hi, there you go, Julie, Oklahoma. We have Kansas, Phoenix. Oh, it's hard. Kelly in Texas, new to content. Welcome, Kelly. New Michigan. Chris is in Alaska. Yay. That's a cool place. That's helpful for me to know because I have clients all over the world. We have Sarah from Columbus. Mold is a problem everywhere. I've lived all over the world. It's a problem everywhere in the United States. It's a problem in Canada. It's a problem in Bend, Oregon. Welcome, welcome. And it's important that we realize that when we're designing our homes. So it's helpful for me to know where you guys are from. Brody is new from Oklahoma. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about our top 3 home building mistakes, my top 3 home building mistakes that lead to mold. I've been doing this for a while, counting up to the top 3. So today will be the 3rd most common building mistake. Tomorrow we'll talk about the 2nd. And on the last day, we'll be revealing the my number one most common building mistake that I see that leads to mold. You're going to be surprised on that last one. I think it's something that no one's really talking about but me. So the schedule is for 3 days. We're going live 1 hour each day. There will be time for Q&A at the end of each live session. If you have a question as I'm talking or about the course that I'm going to mention that we have, or about this number one defect or any other questions you have related to building homes to be mold free, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box, and that's what I'll focus because the chat's going to keep moving. Hi, Helen from California. Welcome. The replays, there will be a replay. So if you're on now and you might not be able to be on another day, they're able to be watched until Saturday night. Don't wait to the last minute. We're going to take them away on Saturday at midnight Eastern time. Plus, if you stick with us all week, we'll be sending you a checklist summary as a thank you for joining us and staying on to learn with us. So stay tuned for that via email on Friday. Check your spam folders, check your junk folders, make sure you're getting your emails from me. What are you going to be learning these 3 days? Each day we're going to be covering one of these top defects that lead to mold, and we're counting up. So today's 3. I've worked with literally thousands of homeowners and building professionals over the years. I've been doing work related to mold since 2016. And there are mistakes that we need to know about, everyone needs to know about, to avoid costly mold problems and water damage issues in your home. And it is costly, I know that. Even the smartest homeowners and well-intentioned builders can make these mistakes. I've made them myself. Full disclosure. Why? Because buildings are really, really complicated. Are you planning to build a custom home or renovate your existing home? Do you care about the long-term quality of your home and want to avoid cutting corners and paying for it down the road? And we've all been there. And do you prioritize your family's health and wellness and want to avoid mold and poor air quality that makes you, your family, and you know what, even your pets sick? Then this is for you. Awareness of the health effects of mold and poor indoor air quality is growing, thankfully. That's part of my mission. And these exposures definitely can aggravate health challenges. Know that autoimmune issues, fatigue, insomnia, brain fog, depression, rashes, random rashes, eczema would be one of those. Allergies and a wide range of sensitivities are commonly associated also with mold exposure. It can also be a burden for diseases that we often think are not curable. Now, Lyme disease is one of them. Obviously, people are talking about that being from ticks or mosquitoes. My husband and I have had Lyme disease. It was made worse. We couldn't recover because we were also being exposed to mold. So mold is an immune system burden that can cause other things you might be predisposed to be much worse. Lyme disease is one of those. Cancer is another one that gets discussed. Alzheimer's and dementia, absolutely. That's been in my family. Parkinson's, MS has also been in my family. And I can tell you that person, which was my sister, was exposed to mold as well. Rheumatoid arthritis and any other condition related to inflammation. Do you already know that you're sensitive to mold? Some people do and have been diagnosed with SEERS. If you said yes to that, then yeah, this is the right place for you. Awareness is certainly growing among homeowners, and many are searching for builders who are willing to prioritize mold prevention. Then this course is for you too. Also, if you're a remediator, if you're a building contractor, if you're a carpenter, if you're a plumber and you see a lot of this, if you're a doctor or any other kind of health professional, there's a lot of people that are becoming more aware of this in mold. This is good background to know, to share with your clients and to know for yourself. Mold can grow in any material. So I want you to know that no material is going to be a silver bullet. And there's a lot of people who come to me saying, well, what materials should I use? It's much, much more than that. If it was that easy, then we would be solving the problems now. Moisture is always, always a factor in mold exposures. Sometimes the moisture may be temporarily dried out, but know that dry is a number. Don't let anybody touch something and say, feels dry to me. That's a big problem. Usually, every building defect that I've seen has something to do with contributing to moisture accumulation in a building, and that will ultimately end up resulting in mold, no matter what material our buildings are made of. So having a mold resistant home really is about avoiding building defects, being defect resistant, and that's what I focus on. Some people think of moldy homes and they think of old wood buildings or old wood buildings. But I want to put the picture in your mind of something like the Norwegian stave churches built in the 11th and 12th century that are built of wood and they're still standing and not necessarily moldy. Or even Chinese temples built in the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries. Some of the reasons why those buildings are standing today are what I talk about in my courses, and we're going to talk about some of those things actually today. We're seeing more and more buildings being built, new construction with mold issues and poor indoor air quality. So it's no longer like, oh, just build new and we're good. It's not happening anymore. This is leading many people to consider other trends that are sold to be mold resistant or mold proof. I mean, there's nothing that's mold proof. So I'd be really careful of that marketing strategy. Tiny homes, container homes, kit homes, barn dominiums, modular homes, geodesic domes, and there's even one that's like an arch building. All interesting ideas. I mean, they're building stuff in factories, and that is hopeful to avoid the water during construction, but none of these buildings will be immune from mold if they're not constructed correctly from the get-go to withstand and to drain water away or keep it out of the enclosure itself. Any home, no matter what kind of home, can still end up with mold and water damage if you're making mistakes in the design, in the construction, in the site planning, all of those things. So this is why I focus on education to help you recognize these building defects and understand moisture problems that can lead to mold. My mission is to teach you how to see the things that I see, and you can. These things are happening everywhere, and that's why I'm doing this free event. A little bit more about me, since many of you are new. Hemp block homes would be the same, Ashley. Everything. Hemp block homes, hemp isn't structural, so it has to have another structural system. Every type of building, there isn't anything that's perfect. But a little bit more about me. Let me get back on track here. So I'm Cheryl Ciecko, as I said. I'm the founder of avoidingmold.com. If you haven't been to my website, do check it out. I've been a licensed architect since 1988. And I now specialize in water damage and mold prevention and speak on these topics frequently at professional conferences. I've been on every kind of building project that they make at some point during my career. And at one point, I worked for the wood industry as a senior technical director. And that's where I started doing education. And that education was for my peers, my fellow architects, structural engineers, and code officials. And I'm also, for the past 8 years now, been the architect representative to the American Lumber Standards Committee, which is part of the United States Department of Commerce, and that's who regulates wood in the United States. And I keep telling them about lumber mold. And so send me your pictures because I'm not going to give up on that one. Why do I do this though? It's not that I woke up one day and thought, oh, I should talk about mold and water damage in buildings. No, 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 no. My own family, including my four children who are now adults, and my husband and I dealt with mold in multiple homes. In fact, I think I was exposed to mold when I was growing up. And we've had mold in our ductwork. That is a thing, metal ductwork. We've been challenged with things like asthma, migraines, depression, fatigue, and brain fog. Lyme disease, I mentioned. My husband was even on disability due to Lyme disease when we realized we had a water damage, a water leak and mold issue in our home. Autoimmune diseases we've been struggling with. Heavy metals is another toxin. And sometimes when you're exposed to other toxins, whether it's food or metals, the additional burden of mold can really take people down. We've experienced health issues that have spent tons of money on our recovery, more than I care to think about. So I know what it's like if that's something that you're dealing with. And I've lived the toxic home nightmare, wondering where we're going to go, what we're going to do. Today, I'm grateful to say that my family is thriving and we're able to do things that we want to do. Everyone in my family is, thankfully. And that is why this is my mission. Since I've been blessed, I feel like I have to share what I know with other people and help others see the details that are so easy to overlook so that you too can protect yourselves and your families. I'm a perpetual student. That would be something I would say to look for in anybody that you work with. It's a constantly changing field in the building world, building science, construction, materials. There's new ones every day. And design is always evolving. Many of the building mistakes I see are actually unintended consequences of seemingly good ideas. But there's a lot of complexity in our buildings today, and humans do make mistakes. It's part of being human. Just know that it's a very specialized field. And my focus is on researching why we have these problems. Mold is a growing epidemic in our schools, in our homes, in our offices, even in hospitals today. Educating yourself on the concepts and details that matter will be the most helpful thing that you can do to protect yourself for the rest of your life. My focus, as I said, is on the root cause. And that should be your focus too, which is why that's what I talk about all the time. If you don't find the root cause, if you find mold and nobody's completely sure why it's there, then know that you can pay a lot of money to clean it, but it's going to come back because you're not fixing the reason it's there in the first place. Avoiding building defects from the start will save you money, improve your health, and save you lots of stress. Additionally, only trust someone with experience, good experience in the building industry, like an architect, that kind of experience to help you find these root causes. So always ask about people's backgrounds. Over these next 3 days, I'm going to share the top 3 home building mistakes that lead to mold and the critical things that you need to know to prevent them. My sincere hope is that you'll have some aha moments, some light bulb moments this week that help you. I'm going to ask you something though. If you learned something that's helpful this week, please share it with others. Help them to direct people to this kind of information. That's how we create real change. Okay, now let's get started with mistake number 3. This is what you've been waiting for. My number 3 mistake is poor site drainage away from foundations. And what are the symptoms of this that people talk about? Well, some of the symptoms are high humidity that's unmanageable or difficult to manage in your building. You want to measure your humidity throughout your house and also, including room by room and sometimes down in a corner in that basement versus the middle of the room. Mold in basements, crawl spaces, in walls, or even under flooring over concrete slabs. A lot of people are posting pictures about that these days. That's also a common problem that's related to this issue of poor site drainage away from the foundation. What's the solution? Most people suggest whole house dehumidification or air purifiers. I'm going to say no, those are not the solution. They can be a Band-Aid temporarily while you're trying to figure out what the root cause is and how to fix the root cause. But to permanently close your eyes to the root cause with dehumidifiers and air purifiers isn't going to solve the problem, because eventually you'll have worse things. You'll have the mold will eventually grow so much that it overtakes the dehumidifiers, or the humidity will overtake the amount that dehumidifiers can remove, and the mold spores will increase so much that the purifiers won't be effective. I've seen it in my clients. So we want to stop the moisture burdens and get the site drainage away from the foundations. So our foundations are primarily concrete or concrete block, which is a sponge. It's porous to water, not porous to air, but it's definitely porous to water. And know that there's moisture below the surface everywhere in the world, including in the desert. Even in the desert, there are rain events. So in the United States, a few years ago, we had some storms come through and basically wiped out Death Valley, California, washed out roads, closed down the national park in a desert. So it rains everywhere sometime, and it may only be for a month or it may be a couple days, but it only takes one water event to create trapped water situation significant enough to be affecting health and to potentially cause degradation in the building over time, in the building structure. So if stuff gets wet, if any part of our building gets wet and soaks into places that it cannot dry, then mold is likely. But the way the water came in means air can get in that way too, and the mold spores can get out that way. So we need to keep water away in all the ways we possibly can. So here's some specific details that matter. Use compacted impermeable soil properly next to your foundation. This is really compacted clay or clay-like materials or clay mixture soil. Do not use wood chips, loose soil, topsoil, some kind of rich potting soil that you got at the big box store. These settle over time and create low spots because they sink from getting wet over time, allowing water to then continue to collect next to our foundations. In the same way, avoid loose rocks, gravel, pea gravel, river rock. They look really great next to a foundation, but know that those materials have big voids in them, air voids that are meant to have water run through them, not flow over the top of them. And so what happens is the subgrade below the rock we can't see and can have divots, can have holes, it can be eroding, and the rock is still there looking good. And we can't see the impacts of what's going on against our foundation. So the codes, building codes everywhere require the slope to be compacted and to be sloped away from our home at a slope of 6 inches down in the first 10 feet. That's a 5% slope starting at the foundation, not flat planting area for 2 feet. And then we start the slope starting at the foundation itself. And for paved walkways and patios, that number is 2% slope away. And so, yes, you're going to have to level your patio table on your sloped patio. It's very slight, won't be very noticeable, but you probably will notice it on your patio table. But we need that so that water stays away from our buildings. Consider more slope, especially in the big areas around our buildings. Then codes are bare minimum, not best practice. And always make sure that there's no water collecting anywhere, like no place that there can be puddles anywhere within 10 feet of our homes themselves. If you can do 20, I do 20. If you don't have 10 feet, you only have 5, then no, the building codes still stay the same. You need the slope, but then you have to be able to collect that water in a swale or in French drains probably and get it out away from the buildings. So it's not can't do it because we don't have enough space. It's just actually more complicated. So make sure there's no water collecting, but here's some places that people don't think about where water collects: behind bushes. So the bushes get bigger and the roots start pulling out of the ground and we end up with reverse drainage behind those bushes. Same thing with trees. They start getting bigger and we end up having reverse drainage between the tree and the foundation. Sprinkler heads, near sprinkler heads. Don't sprinkler your structure. If you have sprinkler heads anywhere near your foundation, turn them on as soon as you can. And it's winter, so many of you won't be able to do that. But see where they're spraying. Sometimes we're spraying our buildings and we don't want the water adjacent to our foundation to be wet and able to have plants grow anyway. So plant low water plants anywhere near the foundation if you have to have plants. Look up. When you're looking around at your foundation, don't forget to look up and look at your roof. If there are places where more water might be coming off a roof, such as a valley, do you see gutters? If you do have gutters and then there's a valley, maybe the valley is overflowing the gutter and you might have a divot there that the ground is low. and collecting water against your foundation. So any kind of roof connection can cause that. Check your downspout discharge locations. And it's not an excuse to say they're in the ground. Then we need to know, where's that water going? And if you have ground that freezes, you do not want your downspouts going into the ground during the winter season when the ground can freeze. And that's a whole nother topic, but just be aware of that. We want to really be able to see where the water is going, and that's the best way to protect our foundation. Also, look around at your neighbors. If you're in a neighborhood where there's a lot of houses nearby, do you have neighbors that are dumping water on your property that might end up at your house? That's usually not allowed, but I have a neighbor that's downspout was headed to my house, and we were able to ask him to just put a diverter on it and send it to the front like we do with ours, and he was good with that. So make sure to look at all around. And finally, make sure also that your foundation is high enough that it's above the ground, at least 8 inches, so that you can have slope away, but 8 inches clearance before the slope starts. So that really tricky seam at the top of the foundation doesn't get anywhere close to where water can soak in. And for you guys in snow country, and there's a few of you I've seen, Alaska for sure, there may be some other things that have to be done to protect that the wall from getting wet from the snow that leans up against the building or ends up against our buildings and melts there, even though it's not just from the warmth of the house leaking out. So check during construction when you're building. There's a lot of stuff getting disturbed, and we don't want the foundation being exposed too much if we can avoid it, even during construction. Okay, so that seems simple, right? Maybe not, but I do see multi-million-dollar custom homes with experienced contractors making this mistake. And if you go to my YouTube channel, there's actually a video there from quite a few years ago, maybe 7 years ago or so, 8 years ago, of me in front of my alma mater at the University of Illinois. They built a new architecture building, and I did a video showing how they didn't do the site drainage right. I actually could tell on the building there were other things, but the architecture building at the University of Illinois, as I said, it's my alma mater, doesn't have good site drainage. So this is a big problem all around. Now, here's what's so important to understand. Site drainage seems straightforward. Just slope the house away, slope the ground away. But as you just heard me say, there's at least 8 specific things that can go wrong that we don't notice, and that even a professional contractor might not notice, even with good intentions. And this is just one of 3 mistakes we're going to talk about this week that has all this other complexity to it. That's exactly why I created my signature program, Build a Safe Home Online Masterclass. And because that's where I've been working with thousands of homeowners over the years with water damage, and I realized that there need to be a better way to share this information. The ones who succeed aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones who know what questions to ask. They're the ones who know a red flag when they see it, and they know what details really matter. And sometimes it's just conceptually, because we have unique details in our buildings. So we just need to know the concepts of how is this supposed to work. And then as human beings, we're smart enough to look at stuff and say, well, it doesn't seem to match what Cheryl said. And that's what we have to do. There's hundreds of critical details across every phase of the building process that can make or break your home's health. And there's no need to be learning from mistakes when there's people like me who have made the mistakes and who have researched this stuff exhaustively that can help you. So let me tell you a little bit about Build a Safe Home, the course, before we get to the Q&A. I see you guys are putting the questions in the Q&A box. Again, anybody who's come on late, there's a Q&A box for questions. So open that up and get your questions in there. It helps me to be able to scroll through them when we get to it. Know that my Build a Safe Home course is an interactive online program, so that's unique. It's not just something you're going to watch and put away. You get me, you get the support of my team and the community of other people doing the exact same thing you are, including professionals who are in my courses. And there's people who have gone on to become professionals who have took my courses. But I will say there's one there's one group that I would say the program is not for. It's not for everyone. If you're looking for a quick fix, if you're looking for someone to tell you just what products to buy, then this is not the course for you. This is for people who want to truly understand the why behind mold prevention and are willing to invest in time and energy and education to end up saving tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in health remediation and correction costs later. That's who it's really for. If that's you, you're in the right place. Here's some things that make the program different. You get lifetime access. So you don't wait till you're doing your project. Join now. Number one, as we add more content, sometimes we raise the price, and whatever we ever add, you still get whenever you join it. Enroll once and start learning for the rest of your life. Keep learning. So even if you're not building right now, this would be a good time to start learning so you're ready when you are. The curriculum includes Unit 1 is site and climate. We learn about your building site and the topography that's necessary to get the water to slope away in a way more detailed way, a way to measure that. Unit 2 is building design, learn how to design the home that's going to naturally resist moisture. So the site section is 7 modules, video lessons. The building design is 11. We talk about HVAC, building, bathroom placement, plumbing design, and system selection, how the duct runs should go, all those kinds of things that you can talk about with your builder, your architect, or your designer. Number 3, Unit 3 is foundations. Any kind of foundation can be built well or poorly, whether you have a basement or a crawl space or a slab. There's a foundation that's right for your climate, and that's what we want to get to, and your location. And we want to waterproof all of them properly. We want to keep water away from all of them. There's 10 detailed lessons there. Know that my lessons, so I'm coming on to you talking, and you're just looking at me. My course, I'm a little picture up in the corner, and my course is jam-packed with photographs, with diagrams, with images, with resources for you to do further research. It's all there. It's it's not me. And there's hardly any bullet point. There's some bullet points. I can't say that there's none, but I'm a picture person. A picture is 1,000 words, and I bring that to my courses. Unit 4 is roofs. The roof is the umbrella over your building. That's critical. It's your home's first line of defense, where the water is going to hit first. Understanding roof styles, insulation placement, attic air management, and how to avoid moisture traps that lead to mold. We have 8 video lessons there. Unit 5 is walls and openings. This one's critical too, because we have openings for windows, doors. The cable guy drills a hole. There's plumbing openings for the hose bib, or for your gas connection, or the electric coming into your building. All these need to be detailed so that they don't leak. And this is a place that I see a lot of mistakes. 7 video lessons there. Unit 6 is contracts and working with contractors. Know what should be in your contract before you hire anybody. Know how to hire the right team and how to manage that relationship and how to protect yourself legally. I can guarantee you everyone else is protecting themselves. We have a bonus unit number 7 that we have just recently created, which is building materials. Now, I've said that it's not the only thing, but we do talk about things like vapor barriers, where they go, where they shouldn't go, flooring options, brick, wood. We talk about stucco pretty extensively. We talk more on drainage. There's a module on HVAC. There's a couple of modules including interviews with people who specialize in things like fresh air intakes and ERVs, HRVs, and whatever else is new in the world. So there's all kinds of stuff in there. As I said, it was interactive. We have monthly live Q&A courses with me. I don't have a coach come on to talk to you and answer questions. It's me every time. And you can bring your questions. You can send them in advance if you can't be on the live call. We've never not answered a question that came in. And we answer more questions who are on the call that people think of when they're on the call. So you can watch the recording for answers if you can't be on the live call. We have a private student community that I really love, because everybody's doing the same thing. They're all kind of worried about the same stuff, and they share their experiences. So I'm there. Those are my VIP people. And you can get support from other homeowners doing the same thing you're going through. My team monitors the group, so you're not just getting me. They're going to have their eyes out there, and when they notice that somebody has a question that hasn't been answered or something, they know where to find me to make sure I get in there. So when you join Build a Safe Home, you have a support network who wants you to ask questions. So sometimes your builders don't, um, and who somebody and a network who wants to help you protect your investment. So there's a lot over $800 in bonuses there, or that we have now. So we've added some bonuses. And Moisture Matters is a 1 hour webinar. I recommend that to watch first. Those are a lot of basics to understand how buildings and get wet in the first place. And they're not all the things you're thinking of. You get that for free today when you purchase, or this week. Before you buy or rent, 3 hours, 3-part video series to help you train your eye on what to see. If we can see the defects on other buildings, we can help design them out of ours. So I teach in those 3 hours of videos with pictures, primarily with pictures, images of all different kinds of signs of mold, water damage, and building defects. Like I said, the biggest disclaimer I have is that once you see this stuff, you can never unsee it. You'll see it everywhere. So that is also helpful before you buy anything, before you buy any houses that you're going to renovate. And this could save you from a nightmare purchase, just knowing what to look for. All that testing isn't not going to be as comprehensive as knowing what to look for that could cause a reason for there to be mold. We offer a year of free Dwell Well Institute membership and a video lesson vault of over 60 videos. So every time stuff comes up, and it happens all the time, details that I haven't gone through extensively, we make a video about it. And I've been doing this for years. And so the vault is really extensive. And there's over 60 additional videos there, including master classes with people that are expert in their field, specialized topics, as I said, and separate access to a community app that you can put your questions in from your phone, wherever you are, and where my team and I monitor, free, again, with enrollment. This course content alone is over $5,000 in value, with the ongoing Q&A sessions and bonuses. But what you really get that I'm most proud of is you get 3 things. You get confidence, a deep understanding of the building process, so you can talk confidently with your team, be an informed client, and make decisions to protect your investment that you're going to be happy with in the future. You get awareness. That's the second one. Direct access to me and my via monthly live Q&A calls in our private community platform. That's exclusive. There's some that are exclusive to Build a Safe Home students. You're never alone in this process. And you get support in making decisions that are going to prevent moisture problems before they start. So here's what one of our students said. I have a quick testimonial here. There's more on my website on the course sales page, but I don't want to read all those. You can read those yourself, but I'm going to read one. This is from Sarah, who's planning a custom build in Colorado. She wrote, "I'm so grateful to Cheryl for providing this course. We want our next house to be built using good principles of moisture management, and now I feel better equipped to evaluate potential builders and their practices. I have a much better idea of what questions to ask and what to look for in a builder." So that alone is priceless. That's just one testimonial. My team is dropping links in the comments if you want to learn more and enroll now. Many of my students say that they wish they would have joined sooner, because it's a life skill, being able to look at buildings and let the buildings speak to you and tell you what might be a problem so that it can be addressed as soon as possible. Now let's get to the Q&A, because I know you got the questions in there. So we're going to get to some questions about today's mistake or whatever else you have. I see you guys have been posting. Brody, you're asking a question. Your mold inspector said your showers need to come out. Our contractor said he didn't think mold could grow between shower tile and the Schluter board is probably what that says, and to just get the grout resealed. That's interesting. So I use a product called Weedy, W-E-D-I. And the reason that I like that product, honestly, over the Schluter product is that the Schluter has more pieces that have to be installed correctly. So I have never had mold growing in my grout with the weedy. And so I would challenge that, and I would do more investigation, Brody, because it is suspicious to me. If you're having mold growing in your grout consistently, the first thing I'd do is measure your humidity in your bathroom. Um, Make sure you have exhaust fans that are working effectively, that they're actually taking air out directly outside, not into out a soffit vent, not into your attic. Um, that they're being effective. So one trick for that for you guys is if take a square of toilet paper and it should stick to your fan, no problem. My husband and I recently had a property that we took the fans apart. They were gross. They weren't actually pulling any air out. The fan itself, the fan component, was covered with dirt and debris for many years. It's about 20 years old. So there's a lot of reasons why the humidity alone can be contributing to moisture burdens in a bathroom and causing mold to grow on grout. So I would start with evaluating more. But I definitely have seen faulty Schluter installations, especially where the walls meet the pan. Another test that you could do is it's called a shower pan flood test. So if you have a shower pan in there that's tile, you can flood that to the height of the curb and see, will you plug the drain with a water balloon is what I would do, so that no water goes down the drain, and you let the water sit for 18 to 24 hours and you see if it goes down. If the water is going down and the drain is blocked, then there's water getting somewhere else in the system. And there's a lot of seams that can be either incorrectly overlapped or not sticking the way they should. Good question, Brody. Right, Christy has a question. Do you building biology products? do I do building biology concepts? I absolutely do. Building biology was created by an architect, actually. I am not a building biologist because I don't feel like I need that additional well, it's a $2,000 course. So I've done a lot more than that. And I have consulted with clients that have used building biologists and have found the things that might not be as well understood as they could be in that program. So I do think the EMF stuff is probably helpful, but it's a very skimming the top program. And I am definitely in alignment with the ideas of building biology, but I would challenge that I take that to another level because I am already an architect. Most of the people who do building biology are not architects to begin with, and so they're training and they do know a lot of things that are helpful. But like I said, I've had more than a handful of clients that we found things that building biology has missed, which is why I know that there's some things being taught there that are incomplete, let's just say. So, good question, Christy. Brody, yeah, it's supposed to be Schluter. I guessed it. Yeah, I actually have a picture. I have to dig that one up. Sometimes I go just looking at houses under construction, and I happen to be in one that was about a $3 million house. And they're very proud to show it to me. I got a lot of good pictures of faulty Schluter installation, and they even had mold in this house under construction. And I believe it was in Utah, so it was kind of in a desert climate, a very dry climate. Okay, so we have Ashley. Question about attics. If anybody else has questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. Ashley's asking about attics. In Oklahoma, we have a mixed climate, hot and humid in the summer and cold and dry in the winter. If we did a mechanical closet in the garage with rigid ducts in a vented attic with Rockwell insulation and continuous soffit vents and ridge vents to make sure it's well ventilated, is that okay? Or is a conditioned attic the only way to go? Well, so if you're ever building a new house, Ashley and everyone else, design your mechanical room to be in the enclosure of your building. Unless your garage is heated, we have a challenge there. In a mechanical closet, they do need fresh air and they need a lot of air movement, and the air in the garage sometimes can be really contaminated just because the car runs for a few minutes coming in and out, and the wind may be blowing to keep those fumes in the garage. So that's one challenge. Then we have these openings. We're going to take warm air. So you have cold in the winter and you want heat. You're going to take heat that only wants to rise to begin with. You're going to raise it up into your attic and then try to blow it down from the ceiling. That is not a comfortable way to heat a climate that has any significant amount of cold. Now, you probably have I don't know in Oklahoma if you have as much summer and air conditioning as you do heat. That does work better in air conditioning, but know that the space in the attic really needs to be a conditioned attic to do that well. And then you wouldn't have to insulate all that stuff, or at least conditioning around the ducts. So I don't know, Ashley, if your project is new construction, or if it's new construction, I would jump ship on all that, and I would create a mechanical room in your home, and I would design the floor say it's a 1-story home with an attic above. I design it so that the ceiling cavity between the ceiling and the attic floor is big enough for your ducts to go through that. Then I would insulate above the attic floor so that you have your duct system and your mechanical equipment in a conditioned space that's easy to access, because we also have condensate drains with this for the summer, for those hot and humid times, that you have to pay attention to those are draining well. And oftentimes in attics, the air movers those condensate drains will end up getting clogged. I mean, I've seen them get clogged going directly outside with the mechanical room on the other side of the wall. So it's something that does happen. And so you have to be able to monitor that, to know that your drains are working. And so it has to be somewhere where you're going to go there regularly and pay attention. Not to mention that you want to change your filters regularly, it depends. It could be every month. It could be every 3 months. It depends on if you have pets, if carpeting. I don't recommend a lot of carpeting. But I know that I live in a place where there's a lot of dust flying around, dirt flying around. It's a little bit more deserty climate, and we have to change our filters more frequently. I think primarily because of there's just a lot of dirt floating around in the air that's clogging up the filter, and so accessibility and frequently being able to look at it is really important. So if you in a hot, humid climate, this is just really difficult to know if your continuous soffit vents and rib vents are going to be enough. That's a calculation. But regardless, there's never enough insulation you could put over your 50-degree air in your metal ducts that could be leaking. That would be another thing to pay attention to. So there's a lot of challenges with that. And that's that configuration, which is why I actually don't recommend that configuration, either in the garage or in the attic. I'd like it to be in your living space, and I'd use the ceiling cavity for moving those ducts around, which requires planning to make sure it looks good. So a lot of our homes today have high ceilings, and so we can kind of vacillate between 8-foot ceilings, 9-foot, and 10-foot ceilings and make that work and look really great. And that's what I would recommend. Deirdre D is asking, is it possible to remove mold from flexible ducts? I would say not completely. So because I know what it takes to clean ducts and to properly clean ducts, flexible ducts are there. They have kind of like metal rings, and then it's more like a fabric. And what happens in the duct cleaning process, and I mentioned earlier that I have been exposed, we had mold in our ducts, and they were solid ducts. And the way they get cleaned efficiently is there's some tools that have to go in there that blow out, and it's almost like has this rubber head with all these strands coming out of it that when the air comes out of it, they bounce around. And so they would rip to shreds flex duct. But the point of that is to knock the dust off the sides of the duct. What I have seen is that they have some brushes that they put through those ducts, but because the surface is kind of up and down, I can't see how they could be effective, and nobody's going to guarantee that that's going to be effective. And you could even break your duct and create openings that you're going to bring more debris into your duct system. So my answer, especially if somebody is sick, would be no. I think if you have flex ducts, you either need to replace the flexible duct and put back new flexible ducts, or consider other options in terms of your duct system or your heating and air conditioning. Maybe you go to mini splits or something like that. So I'm sorry to say that cleaning flexible ducts is pretty tough. Ashley's asking, are cathedral ceilings an absolute no? No, I had cathedral ceilings in my house that I built. I have cathedral ceilings in my house right now. That is a builder house that I bought. Um, it was a risky purchase, but I used my eagle eyes and all the things that I teach in the course to inspect it. I did miss a couple things, I will say, because you're limited on time and you're trying to make a decision. But all the things that we needed to fix, we could fix. Like we had to fix some of the site drainage, but the most of it was really good. We had leaks in our ducts. So fortunately, I could see those ducts in an unfinished basement. And while I thought they were good initially, when I really looked at them closely, I realized that there were what's called fish hook leaks. Like it's like the tape has got a wrinkle in it, and so there's places for air currents to go that the tape isn't completely sealing. There are other places where they brush on a coating that wasn't completely sealing. So, but our cathedral ceilings, an absolute no. No, I like them. I would have them in any house I built. However, there's a right and a wrong way to insulate those, and and that's part of the construction. So if you're building new, then I would consider insulating on the outside with rigid foam on the outside, almost like you have your coat on the outside of your body, and limit any openings in it, like the cathedral ceilings that are full of can lights and bad insulation are notorious problems because it's a cavity. You can't even, it's really difficult to completely air seal that. So you want to create a plane of insulation, and that can be that cavity maybe doesn't have insulation in it. And then there's another layer of what is the insulation. And usually that's some sort of rigid insulation with the seams overlapped so that you get a really continuous plane. That's how I would recommend doing cathedral ceilings. Valerie is asking, are flat roof lines an absolute no versus pitched roof? It's very popular where I live in Bend, Oregon. Hard to find a house without any flat roof. So the first thing everybody needs to know about a flat roof is that by code, they have to have a slope. So even flat roofs have a slope. They have to have a 2% slope. And the challenge with them is that they might not. The other challenge with flat roofs is the water has to get off somehow, some way. And they often have scuppers. So they'll do things like they'll have a parapet and then they'll have a scupper through the parapet. Well, that means water's coming off the roof and basically dumping down the side of the wall. And you can imagine that's not good for the wall. So I think if a building is newer and you had to redo it and fix it and make it better, maybe it could be okay. I generally do prefer sloped roofs just because for anybody, especially anybody who's a novice at this, but even for me, there's a slam dunk that the roof is what draining water away. And I also recommend big overhangs so that you have this umbrella effect that you're protecting your windows and your openings and all these other things that are protrusions going in and out of your wall. You have another way to protect them. They're under an umbrella. So that if somebody did make a mistake, you have multiple ways that maybe it won't become eventful for your building. So I wouldn't say it's an absolute no. I think I would do it. I'd consider doing it if I was building, but I would be really careful about the details that I use and how that gets designed. And there's some flat roofs that are just basically like one side that they're flat to versus having the scupper. And sometimes those will go to a gutter. But if they're very old, it is possible. I mean, it's very easy to end up with hills and valleys on those things where puddles are collected or there's openings for plumbing pipes or for vents that come through the roof in some way, like an exhaust fan. But definitely plumbing pipes. The plumbing soil stack would be one that if that flashing had leaked, if the connection there had leaked at any time, that it ends up being kind of a nightmare. So it's tricky. I definitely would prefer a sloped roof, but there's some flat roofs that are better than others. I guess I could say that. Again, it's just looking, how's the water getting off this thing? If you can't figure out how the water ever gets off, then you want to ask, is it just a drain that's going down through the building? Those are really hard to monitor. Really hard to monitor. But if I'm looking for mold, that's where I would start looking too. And maybe you can fix it and do it better if you decide to buy something like that. But it's just helpful to know that don't spend your last dollar if you're going to have to deal with something like that. Callie is asking, we just discovered our HVAC in our new addition has mold. It's 1 year old. Upon inspection, it was found there were not fresh air intakes. This is a gas HVAC in a spray foam attic where is fresh air introduced in this situation? Okay, Kelly, I'm just going to guess that you're in a humid climate. I don't know if you can answer that in there. Tell me where you are located. That's always the first thing I ask anybody is when they ask a question, especially related to something like HVAC, is that we need to know what's the climate burden. I don't think it's fresh air intake because I'm assuming if you're running your air conditioning a lot, that it's humid and hot, at least hot. And the problem in attics, especially spray foamed attics, is all the warm, humid air in the house goes up to the attic. And spray foaming an attic does not make it conditioned. It makes it airtight attic with no ventilation, that has no air movement, that is collecting warm, moist air. So moist air will be more, will carry, let's just say warm air will carry more moisture than cold air, is the way I should say that. And so the warm, and you could have a foundation issue. Your foundation could be getting wet. And just like the what we talked about today, look at all those things. And if your foundation is getting wet and it's drying to the inside, which is the only place water ever is going to dry, it's going to dry to the drier side. And whether it's there's even in really dry climates, there might be sometime it dries a little bit to the outside. But if it's actually raining at any time during the rain event, it's 100% relative humidity outside, and our buildings will only dry to the inside during that time. And even winter in cold climates, sometimes it's kind of remarkable how high the humidity actually is, and we think it's low. So, I'm going to guess you have a foundation problem. I'm just guessing. So I'd check that. I'd rule that out. And your HVAC has mold probably because there's mold somewhere else in your building, or there's high humidity being accumulated somewhere in your building, and it's being trapped by the spray foam in the attic. The solution for that there is probably the first thing I would do is run a dehumidifier in your attic. I'd measure the conditions in your attic against the spray foam. If you do have high humidity, having fresh air is not going to be the solution. So I would start with a dehumidifier in your attic and measure the conditions in the attic to know whether it's how humid is it up there? What's the temperature? If it's really easy, and if it's 100 degrees up there, and even though you have spray foam, it's still 100 degrees up there, maybe it's 90. It's really, if you have anything above 40% relative humidity up there, you have a lot of humidity. And then there's dirt and dust. And the humidity alone, that's very high humidity. If it's above 40, I'm going to guess that it is. And no moving air and dirt and dust that's everywhere is enough for mold to grow. So my first suggestion would be to add a dehumidifier in that situation. I don't recommend spray foam to attics. I actually don't recommend spray foam in any part of our homes except for maybe around openings or something that's an isolated situation. But that is a challenge we're finding more and more with spray foamed attics, is collecting the heat of the house and all the moisture in the house from cooking, breathing, all the stuff we do, showering, washing, and slabs oftentimes, and having that end up all in the attic with nowhere to go. So tough problem, Kelly, but hopefully that's an answer for you that's going to be helpful for you to look further. Good question. Whitney's asking, what foundation type is best for Arkansas? Well, usually what I tell people is, what's the predominant foundation type in your location? So foundation type has a lot to do with the soil, whether you have like Florida's a swamp. You're not putting any basements in Florida. Um, some places have a lot of rock that makes it difficult to excavate for a basement. Um, Crawl spaces can be managed well as a short basement. That's the only way that I would do a crawl space is I would design it as a short basement that has conditioned space in it. A slab can be done well in a place like Florida if it's a situation where you need to use a slab. And again, this is location specific. So generally, if there's people in your neighborhood that have basements or in the neighborhood or in the area that have basements, then you probably can do a basement. If nobody has basements, then you got to think a few times. You got to think on that. Like, why is that nobody has basements? Um, and sometimes it can be because of whether, what others below the ground. But even a slab, you can raise a slab and you can build it up so that you get good drainage away. And it's more important that you're getting your drainage away. The reason I like I like a basement first is you can go look under it. You can see if the walls are leaking. You can see if you have plumbing leaks, and you can use the space for mechanical equipment. Crawl spaces, you can do the same, but that's why I would design them as a short basement, one that you'd be willing to go into and that to keep an eye on it. Um, Crawl spaces, a base or slabs have to have a vapor barrier and they have to have really good drainage away, and you still have the sidewalls being exposed to weather. So whatever you can do with big overhangs or porches and whatnot to eliminate that would be helpful. So I hope that's getting you in the right direction. What do I recommend instead of spray foam? Well, I don't mind like spray foam in a can, like they have window sealants and that kind of thing. Instead of spray foam, I would do something like rock wool. There's board. I like the board products that, or you can do spray. And I had cellulose in my house, and I would do it again. There's every material has its challenges. I mean, that you could have gaps in cellulose. Cellulose, I don't think is a problem in and of itself with the material, but you do want to double check. I would do a blower door test, whatever insulation you use. That's not, especially not spray foam, but even if it is spray foam, they're finding spray foam decouples from the structure. So even though we think that we're completely sealing stuff, there's people, and you can find them on Instagram and Facebook because I see them that are doing these tests where they have smoke guns or smoke detectors, smoke theater smoke machines, and they walk around and they can find where the air currents are coming from behind the spray foam because it's decoupled from the wood substrate. Usually it's over wood, and the wood expands and contracts. It's going to expand when the wet spray foam hits it, and then as the wood dries out, it's going to contract, and there's no way the spray foam can keep from doing that thing that it does. That's natural for wood to do. And so we end up with little air cavities where if you have mold between the spray foam and the surface, that the air currents can actually end up in our buildings. So yeah, but I think mineral wool is the best insulation. There's also people using sheep's wool. That's really interesting. It doesn't have fire retardants, but there's different types of insulation for different situations that I would suggest. So, but spray foam, there are spray foams that are done that seem to be fine. The problem is that if you ever do have a leak, you won't know about it until your structure is degrading to nothing. That's also a challenge, which is why they give really good warranties. They put spray foam on a roof. It's a challenge. It's also the spray foam industry is growing in the amount of attorneys that are specializing in spray foam defects. It's a little bit of a clue there too that maybe something's gone awry. It's a lot. There's a lot of details to think about with spray foam. I would recommend Rockwool, but I don't have a problem with any other kind of bad insulation or blown in cellulose. It really depends on the installation type, where you're putting it, and how these things are being installed. But I would do a blower door test, whatever you do, and make sure that you've also addressed air leakage. Okay, Valerie's asking, is there a way for a house with a basement? We're getting to the end of our time here. Let's see if I can get through these three more. Is there a way for a house with a basement or partial basement, half of it backs into the earth, to remain mold free, or should you just avoid that and go with the crawl space? Oh, I would totally do that. That's a walkout basement. Yeah, I'm sitting in a walkout basement right now. In front of me, I can walk right out onto a patio. Behind me, way back there, behind my closet doors back there, it's below grade and unfinished, so I can see it. But that wall is an interior wall. So I would completely do a basement or a partial basement as opposed to a crawl space. You just have, and we talk about that in the foundation module of how to do this well. Getting the site to grade away well is big part of it, a big part of it. But that's just one detail of many related to the foundation moisture management. So, but I would do the basement hands down in that situation, especially if you can get daylight windows and stuff. Yeah, so great. I wouldn't finish a basement below grade in the first 2 years that you build it. So you can make sure everything's working well before you do anything. And even then it's tricky on what would be the solution for finishing that. I mean, this is a half height wall over here. That's concrete. And someday I may have to check it out and see if it's okay. We did that and I did the best I could, but time will tell. And I'm in a very dry climate and we did address the drainage outside. So, you do the best you can and then you see how it's going to go. That's part of the problem here is that a lot of this stuff are new issues that we don't know they've gone bad until like 20, 30 years later. Good question, Valerie. Okay, Jenna has our last question. Then we're going to move on and reconvene tomorrow. In our district, our building code requires us to finish off drywall for an ICF foundation. I feel that this removes the ability to truly see if there are any leaks in the basement. I agree. That's very smart of you, Jenna, to notice that, to know that. What do I advise? Personally, I would avoid an ICF basement. If you already have one, you could do ICF above poured concrete, but it's a lot easier to do the poured concrete. There's definitely been examples of ICF failures. The ICF foundations need to have the exact same details that we have in regular foundations. There's no real benefit. The reason that they're having you finish it with drywall is because the foam is flammable, really flammable, and really toxic if it starts burning. And so the drywall is acting as a fire retardant over the foam. You could see if there's any other kind of treatment that they can do to the foam to be a fire retardant that they would accept and that wouldn't be too toxic for you, because fire retardants are generally pretty toxic. Otherwise, yeah, that's a tough one. I think that they're doing it for fire and then all you can do is glue it up and know that you might have to take it down at some point and look behind it. Keep an eye on your humidity really, really closely. All basements and all garages should have dehumidifiers in them. So that's another fun fact for those of you still hanging on here. But I think if you have it and you have to see if there's some sort of coating, intimate, some sort of non-fireproof coating. I know they exist. Is it less expensive than drywall or easier to do? I don't know, or less toxic. I don't know, but drywall is pretty cheap and it may be the only thing that you can do. And then you'll just have to keep an eye on your humidity and see how it goes. We haven't built yet. Jenna says our contractor wants to use ICF. We could be open to concrete. Yeah, because I ask if I don't think so. Some building departments will require you to insulate, but if you've insulated on the outside, and that's what I usually recommend, and we talk about in the course, is outside insulation on a foundation. So you waterproof and you insulate outboard of the concrete, and you also have to insulate between the foundation and the footing. That's another place. But if they will let you get away with that, I'd be inclined to just. The other thing with ICF that you can't see if there's voids. There's a lot, it's actually, I looked at it for my own house and it was more expensive. And, but so I'd consider doing it without the ICF is what I would consider in your situation. So Ashley is saying, I love this webinar. Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. So we are at the end of our time for today. And we went a little over an hour. All right. So before we go, I want you to know something. I want you to know that if your family's been affected by mold like mine was, or if you're just determined not to let it happen to you because you've had too much other life experiences through your life, then just know you're not alone. That's why I do this work, to help people who this matters to. My Build a Safe Home Masterclass is my way of giving you my 35 plus years of experience as an architect and with the building industry, along with my 20 plus years of research and hard-won knowledge related to building science, water damage, and mold since my own family. When my children got really sick in 2005, I didn't start doing this till 2016. So everything that I do for continuing education for my license is done on building science, because it just isn't going away. And at that time, for 10 years of that, before I started helping other people, I'm just trying to protect my own family. So you know that I was doing a lot of work. And I don't want you to learn these lessons the hard way and the super expensive way. So anyway, for tomorrow, we'll cover mistake number 2. And as I promise, it's going to be a surprise. I think they're all going to be a little bit of a surprise. It's something that happens in almost every new construction, or I could say it's something that doesn't happen well in every new construction project, even with experienced builders who care about quality. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Come back tomorrow. We will have more time for Q&A at the end of tomorrow's session, so bring your questions. And if you want to dive deeper now and get started, jump into the Build a Safe Home course. The link my team has posted, I think. And we'll see you tomorrow, everyone. I look forward to revealing mistake number 2 with you all. And so take care, and remember that details matter. Thanks again for being here. Bye, everyone.